Okay. Probably, well, I know nobody's watching right now, so can't do a proper sound check until I have at least one viewer, which who knows, may not uh, get. Okay. All right, I have a viewer. Sound check is good. Okay, so let me just announce that I am on here on the. It used to be the Bird app, and now the Dog app. All right, now it's on Twitter. Okay. So, yeah, well, there's nothing I can do about the fan. Um, it's the. Let me see if I can do change the fan. All right. No. No, the pull chain for the fan itself, as opposed to the light, seems to be missing. Oh, yeah, I need to get a haircut, but I've been working, keeping the grocery store clean. So I just had 9 days in a row of work, and I get today and tomorrow off, and then I work Saturday, but I get Easter and Easter Monday off. All right, so which means I haven't had a whole lot of time to do anything other than work because other stuff pays exactly $0.00. So that's things I'm reading. I'm making slow progress on this old history of New Mexico. I'm up to the reconquest of New Mexico by Vargas, following the 1680 Pueblo Revolt, which overthrows the Spanish. They come back in 1693, and by 1694, Governor Vargas has reconquered what is today New Mexico. Uh, it's from the early 60s, so it's not a lot of political correctness, thank God. Pretty straightforward political narrative. Also reading this series, Peter Lovesey, Peter Diamond series. It takes place near Chichester, which I think is near, not too far from Bath. It's also near Sussex, I think. I'm not real clear on a lot of the geography of England outside of London, but I did go to Bath once, so I know where it is in relationship to London by train. But the other cities they deal with, I'm have not been to. I haven't been to Chichester. I think it's how it's pronounced. Who knows? I'm also reading. Oh, I didn't grab it. A book on one of these adventuresome characters in British colonial history. He introduced football into Burma. I left the book on the couch, but uh, and Ian Rankin, who is a Scottish writer, I'm reading a book of his that was published fairly early on in his career as a writer in Great Britain, but took 3 decades to get a U.S. Published version. I bought it on sale, $3 at Christmas time. Well, I'm about halfway through with that. It's actually pretty interesting. I actually like it better than his police procedurals, which take place in Edinburgh. If for no other reason, since this novel takes place mostly in London, the dialogue is written in English and not the Low Scots, which is uh, akin to, I guess, Middle English in terms of its difference with uh, what most people in the Anglosphere speak. It's not noticeable as standard English. It's I would say Low Scots is basically a type of Ebonics for white people. It's kind of a made-up semi-language, the way it's portrayed in the Rankin novels. I don't know about how it actually sounds because I never got to Scotland the 3 years I lived in the UK, but the way he writes it out, I have difficulty understanding it. And they put all the nouns at the end. So Low Scots would be like, I have to the store go walking. I have my tea get drinking. What is it? How is that? Is that how it works? I seem to think remembering it had a lot of stuff that was not related to German, but at any rate, uh, Ian Rankin can write in actual English and not Low Scots, it turns out, for dialogue. Um, so I like this book better than his a police procedurals out of, I think it was Edinburgh. So Edinburgh and Glasgow are the two big cities in Scotland. So my book, you should all go buy it. The Years of Great Silence is now in 527 libraries. Countries that did pretty good in acquiring it are the United States, Germany, South Africa, United Arab Emirates, and that's about it. Countries have been very bad: Canada, Great Britain, most of the rest of the world, but hopefully some people will read it. I'm not hoping to make much money off of it ever, but you know, the Anglosphere is not where I've got. I mean, other than the U.S., I don't have a lot of sales in the Anglosphere. Australia and New Zealand are particularly anemic. The only English-speaking country other than the U.S. to acquire any significant number of my books in terms of representation in university libraries is the Republic of South Africa, which has 12 official languages, only one of which is English. And the other main language other than English in South Africa, of course, is Afrikaans, which is similar to Dutch. But you can buy it as a private individual. So it's still $42 US. If you're in the US, Canada, Columbia University Press is the official distributor. If you're in the European Union, Ibidim Verlag out of Stuttgart and Hanover is the publisher. In Germany, you can get it directly from them without going through Columbia University Press. Or I believe if you are in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, your best option is Amazon UK. The earlier, before Brexit, you could have done it through the publisher directly, but now it's a lot more expensive due to removal of Great Britain from the European Union. Well, Men Like Gods, I am not a trained oral historian, and that was they weren't my first attempts. I did a kind of a dry run. Well, I won't say a dry run. It was an actual project, interviewing some Karachais who had been deported in 1943 to Kyrgyzstan. But yeah, I hadn't had any formal training or much experience with conducting historical interviews. And later, after I did the interviews, I was working at the University of Ghana, where there were a number of people who were experts on oral history, since it's a much more developed and used method in Africa due to a lack of surviving written documentation, even in the 20th century. Still lots of stuff not recorded, and of course, lots of stuff that is recorded, the archives not being properly maintained mean a lot of them, these documents are destroyed by insects and mold and other natural causes. So I put that in there, that I guess to kind of explain why I wasn't able to do more with it. But I suppose if you aren't trained as an Africanist, and I was trained as an Orientalist, you're not going to have any instructions in how to conduct oral history at all. It was part of the curriculum for history in Africa when I was teaching University of Ghana, but I've never seen it anywhere else. And like most things, the history of Russia, particularly the Soviet Union, is methodologically as well as ideologically very backwards. They're still stuck in the Stalin era. So quite literally, not only do I write about the 30s and 40s, but everybody else in the field is basically still thinking exactly the same as people like Yagoda and Berman and Behrens in the field. That is, they're basically just academic apparatchiks but they're still pretty much apologizing for the Stalinist regime. Few exceptions that kind of weird people like Timothy Snyder, but for the most part, you have a lot of apologia by people like Francine Hirsch and Amir Viner, justifying crimes of the Stalin regime. All right. Chat seems to be dying. Pine Nut Man appears. We grow pine nuts here. Don't eat a lot of them. I think I ate more when I was in Iraq because they put them in the hummus. But maybe I should eat more pine nuts. I think they were a staple for the Pueblo Indians before the arrival of the Spanish, who greatly altered the eating habits here, both by bringing stuff from Europe, but also bringing stuff from further south, from Mexico, where I believe both the chili pepper and the tomato were introduced to Europeans by the Spanish conquest of Mexico. Not too bad for culinary contributions internationally. Both the tomato and the chili pepper, fine vegetables. Also chocolate, the mole sauce, but I'm not sure how widely that was adopted before New Mexico became heavily Hispanicized. So, I mean, it takes quite a while to get the colonial population of people coming from Spain, and not all of them are Spanish. Some are Portuguese. A few from other European countries, mostly Catholic ones like Italy, which doesn't exist yet because it's unified, but what becomes Italy. Into New Mexico, but yeah, they only had like a few tens of thousands of Spanish settlers in the region before they lost the whole of Nueva España to a Mexican Revolution in 1821. So even today, I think we only have about 2.5 million people in New Mexico, and perhaps as many as 1.5 million of those are in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, these big cities, but that's about all we got. All right. I have not read Death Come for the Archbishop. What is that Philip K. Dick novel, Timothy Archer, which was based? He wasn't. I believe he was Episcopalian, but he had some weird quest in the Negev desert in Israel, and like just took like 2 bottles of water with him. They found him dead from dehydration not too much longer. I think he was from San Francisco, which might explain his attempt to brave the desert. Was so little foresight. Uh, Anyways, Philip K. Dick is always an interesting writer. So the one of his later books is kind of in the period when he was heavily in the kind of a Gnostic vision, especially the novel Valis. But has some relevance for today because the empire never died. And of course, this is called Update from the Edge of the Empire, just as it was under the Spanish. And now it's been under U.S. rule since 1848. The signing of the Treaty of Hidalgo Guadalupe. Willa Cather, one of the best American novelists of the 20th century. I haven't read much of hers. I know she's quite popular in the Midwest, the Plain States. Well, Mobutu was around in Zaire for a very long time, stealing everything he could get into his French bank account, or was it Swiss bank account? He ended up going into exile in France, as many African and Haitian dictators have. Anybody wants to come on, you can send me a DM or an email. If not, I will, of course, wrap this up earlier, but I'll keep it going for a little while now. It's only been 22 minutes. Are you talking about the special NKVD camps in the Soviet occupation zone of Germany? It says German gulags because I'm not sure what that means. Because gulag is the main administration of camps, and it's within the USSR. Within the SBZ, there is the special NKVD camps. And I don't have a lot on them. It's not actually my area of specialty. So these things were around from May 1945 to January 1950, 5 years. And about 160,000 people went through them, and about 43,000 died. A little more than 43,000 officially, but I do not have anything particular special on them. I haven't had access to a academic library in a long time. I'm not even sure if you'd count the library at American University Iraq Suleimania as an academic library. So perhaps the last time I had access to anything resembling an academic library, and it was particularly underfunded and had been quite some time since really was up to date, was the University of Ghana, and I left there in 2016, so that was 7 years ago. but it looks like there's quite a bit on the subject in German. So if you can read German and you have access to a proper academic library, you should be able to find a fairly large number of works, including memoirs from the survivors, but also more traditional academic works on the subject. I see almost nothing in English on it, though. It appears to be almost entirely in German. So, yeah, that would be my suggestion. Yeah. So, again, for big academic libraries, I'm like at least 3 hour drive away from any. I think there's one in Albuquerque, the University of New Mexico, and then New Mexico State University is in Las Cruces. Um, and it's a 3 hour drive to Texas Technical University in Lubbock. Uh, one of the problems of academia is that, well, most of the good academic work, anything that's innovative, is done by people outside of academia. Uh, it's not nearly as much as it could be because the academics and institutions uh, basically deny any resources to people outside of the system. So you can't get access to JSTOR unless you either are independently wealthy and pay a huge amount of money, or you are connected to an academic institution. So if you, no matter how many peer-reviewed journal articles or academic books you publish, if you're not currently working at a university or you don't have $1 billion in cash, JSTOR is not going to give you access to anything. Same thing with the other databases like EBSCOhost, Muse. They're all basically banned for the use by individual independent scholars. But I first noticed this, back in 2005, 2006. Uh, when I attended a conference, and let me get the paper from it, it's up here, in London on cotton in Central Asia, and there were almost nobody who was an actual academic there. All of the research was being done by people outside of academia. And particularly, strangely enough, a lot of it was being done by people involved with international finance, and particularly the Asian Development Bank in Manila. But even though the conference was sponsored at SOAS, my alma mater for my PhD in London, most of the participants were not in any way, shape, or form connected permanently to any academic institution. So, what is it? Here it is. So, this was my paper in the publication that came out of that conference. But if you go and look at the conference book itself in its entirety, you'll see that most of the people that contributed were not academics. That the subject, which seemed to be fairly important, the role of cotton in Central Asia, was not something that interested them. They were more interested in crap like gender. Where is there it is, caste of helot laborers. Well, there's no more Volksdeutsch in the Schwarzmeer region. They were either deported eastward, particularly those in the east, places like Zaporozhye, what was then Stalin, Voroshilov, and Oblast, I can't remember the third one, but they were deported into Kazakhstan in 1941. And those further east in the central and western parts of Ukraine were evacuated into Germany, and most of them, over 2/3, forcibly repatriated to the USSR, Siberia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and those in Crimea, they were forcibly relocated to Stavropol Krai, which was then Ordzhonikidze Krai, and Rostov Oblast before being deported into Kazakhstan in October of 1941. And because they were moved so fast, they had almost no time to bring any possessions with them. They did not do very well once they arrived in Kazakhstan in the late fall and early winter of 1941. But no, I haven't. I haven't been to the former German villages in Ukraine or Moldova or Crimea. I've been to some former German villages in Kyrgyzstan, most notably Ivanovka, which used to be Johannesdorf. There aren't a whole lot of Germans left there. It's mostly Kyrgyz. There's a fairly large Dungan population there, although not as big as a little further east in Tokmok, which is kind of the center of Dungan life in Kyrgyzstan, or one of the centers. Alexandrovia, the other way, west of Bishkek, is also a important Dungan town. But the Dungans are Muslim Chinese who fled into Tsarist Russia from the repression of the Chinese after a revolt by Muslims in China was put down and crushed. So I got invited to go see some of the old German villages in Georgia, but I couldn't make it because my boss, who ended up firing me anyways, a very evil Lebanese criminal, made me deliver final exams in Kurdistan, so I couldn't go to the conference for the 200th anniversary of the establishment of German colonies in Georgia. But I mean, this is typical. American University of Iraq Suleimania. It's not a real university. It's a front for the CIA, and most of the Kurdish students there are not people that should ever have been in university to begin with. Uh, I'm becoming increasingly skeptical that you can educate people in most of the world. The one exception seems to be Africa, because they have very high standards of only allowing in the top 10%. And in Ghana, at least, I can't speak to other parts of Africa. And they also, since they are the top 10%, seem to have very strong, imposed by other students as well as their families, a discipline as far as studying and reading. And so you can say all you want about Africans and Ghanaians on average having a low IQ. I will take the Ghanaian student at the University of Ghana over American Jewish, quote unquote, Ashkenazi genius any day of the week. All right. Well, it doesn't look like anybody's going to join me. So it's been 37 minutes. So maybe I'll wrap this up by 45 minutes, be a short stream. As I said, I've been spending all my time working as a janitor, 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. So routine is 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. clean 3 restrooms, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The outside porch, entry to the door, particularly to get all the bird shit off. And then I take out garbage from the inside, and then the parking lot, and then clean the parking lot. North Dakota State University. I have some connections with them. So Michael Miller just retired the GRHC, Germans from Russia Heritage Collection. Sure if I know anybody else other than Miller, who is now retired there. Well, he was, as I said, in the library. I'm not sure who else I know. Miller might be the only one that I have any contact with there. Have I ever been on Academic Agent Streams? I was on one once to talk about Kurds, and Dr. Parvini didn't seem to understand how pipelines worked. Which unusual for an Iranian. And most Iranians I know very well aware how oil pipelines work, but what can we say? Okay, well, I did have the day off and didn't do much. Did Yeah, the jerky here isn't bad. I haven't had it in a while because it's Lent and I'm abstaining from eating all land animals, meat and poultry until Easter. Who is the Emperor Cho? Don't know who Emperor Cho is. Cho sounds like a Korean name. I don't know. So I yeah, so I've mostly been working, but I get the day off, so I had Vietnamese food I threw together, and let's see, I called my daughter in Kyrgyzstan, talked to her. Went for a walk, but haven't done anything really productive. But it's okay. I was so tired of working day after day, you know. Uh, it's a lot more physically demanding uh, than what I'm used to. And of course, I'm not young anymore. I'm on the old side of 50, and it's you work 8-hour shifts. That's fine for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, even 5 days, which is normally what you do before you get a break. But this last week I worked 9 days with no break. So and does wear you out. Oh, hola. So Eki is still around. I'm surprised we have anybody left in Los Angeles who is of European ancestry. Well, sort of surprised, yes. I mean, I'm trying to have these things so I have some sort of documentation in a media other than writing, which I also have a kind of my life. So I'm not sure anybody would ever be interested, but maybe somebody ever wants to put together something that involves me. There'll be some primary source material for them to do it. I won't leave them completely hanging with no no ability to research me other than say I don't know, engaging in oral history, which if you've read my book, as you'll note that it has a number of unique problems that don't pertain to other primary sources. Eki has spotted some European descendant people in the Los Angeles area. Are you sure that they're white though? Perhaps they are just white looking. Perhaps they are Hispanic or Arab or Persian, and they just have a light skin, right? But I'm going to reject this idea that somebody who is a Muslim and comes from Syria who looks white is what we mean by white when we talk about it in a U.S. context. All right. So obviously, there's other components other than light skin to. Well, there are lots of green-eyed Kurds in Iraq. I saw them all the time when I lived in Sulaymaniyah. They also had red hair, but the Kurds are a good example. The Kurds are actually, according to their language, Sorani and Kurmanji are Indo-Aryan languages related to Farsi. Right, so these are descendants supposedly of the Medes, who were one of the Aryan empires alongside the Persians. But culturally, there's been a lot of Islamization and even Arabization of this population. So the Aryans that went to Europe and the Aryans that went to Iran and Iraq, Kurdish regions in the north of Iraq and southeastern Turkey, there's a huge gulf. I would say an insurmountable gulf. So the fact that they look white and may have green or blue eyes isn't indicative that they are part of of what we mean by whiteness. In fact, perhaps we should get rid of the term white because of this, as far as confusing it, and use the word European, because really that's what we mean when we have the whole package of cultural traits that go with the biological ones. For ethnos, we're talking people who are either indigenous Europeans or descendant of indigenous European colonists and settlers in North America or Australia, New Zealand, and though it's fading, formerly Southern Africa. Do I think Christian Lebanese and Armenians are white? Armenians are kind of a edge case, but Lebanon is. Let's see, again, this term white is not really helpful. Lebanon is clearly geographically in the Middle East, and yes, Christians are one time, not too long ago, a majority of the population of Lebanon, but still, because of the Ottoman Empire and before that other Islamic empires, and because of the settlement, the population in Lebanon even that which is Christian is heavily Arabized. They generally all speak Arabic language, and they've adopted most of the cultural norms, including those with Islamic and Sharia basis. So it's very different than a place like Germany or Denmark or the Netherlands or France or Italy in those terms. So yeah, I would probably exclude Christian Arabs from being considered European. So I mean, yes, they look white. In some cases, they have European ancestry. But if you've ever been to Lebanon, you know that while it has a large Christian population, although now a minority, and it's quite liberal compared to a place like Saudi Arabia, it's definitely culturally an Arab country. I am 52, lobster crustacean. I don't know who Chris Kattan is. Is he a Lebanese Christian like Sammy Hagar? The most dangerous city I've been in? I don't know. Maybe Washington, D.C., maybe Los Angeles, maybe New York City. I don't know which is most dangerous. London? I don't know. How do you measure danger? No, I have no gray hair, but my father is 80 and he has no gray hair either, and he doesn't dye it. So I will probably die with no gray hair, but unfortunately, lack of gray hair does not translate into immortality. Chris Kattan is Lebanese. Okay. Well, I've been to San Francisco, but it was a lot. Last time I was in San Francisco was literally over 20 years ago. So I was in my very early 30s last time I was in San Francisco. Yeah, I would agree with Men Like God. European Christianity is significantly Germanized, and Christianity outside of Europe is a lot less so. um, and in fact, Christianity outside of Europe tends to be indigenized. I noticed this very, very starkly when I was attending church in Ghana. So, there theologically, the Presbyterian Church in Ghana is quite similar to what existed in Scotland in the 17th and 18th centuries, particularly the 18th century, I guess. But the liturgy is Africanized. So the way the service is actually conducted is very different than you would see in the United States among mainstream white Protestants, or in Scotland, or among other Reformed denominations in the Netherlands or Switzerland, or I suppose even South Africa. It's it's hard to explain, but there are more similarities between the Presbyterian Church of Ghana and, say, the Pentecostals in Ghana in the way their services are conducted than there is between the Presbyterian Church in Ghana and the Presbyterian Church in the United States. Eki, are you sure Los Angeles is any safer than San Francisco? San Francisco is smaller population, is a denser population, a smaller area, but I think if we take Los Angeles as a whole, I don't think it's really any safer than San Francisco. I am neither Catholic nor Lutheran. I'm Presbyterian. But the Presbyterians in Ghana, they don't eat any meat for 40 days during Lent, including chicken. So now, granted, it's easier to not eat meat in Ghana, because there's particularly during Lent, because there's a lot of vegetarian and fish options. But I've done okay. I've managed to avoid eating beef, pork, and chicken for almost 40 days now. I've been too lazy to go get a haircut, but like it doesn't really matter because nobody cares what the janitor looks like. But I'll get a haircut someday. But it's not like I need to impress anybody, though. Uh, okay. Well, I've been almost going an hour, and I don't have too much more to say. Consider this to be like my Easter update. If anything exciting happens, I will let you know. I may try and sometime this spring try and organize a stream with Andy Nowicki on 1980s popular culture. My first language is English. I don't know about Seattle Public Library. Let me see where the nearest book to Seattle is. The University of Washington library has it. That is the only library in the city of Seattle to have it. So if you can get access to University of Washington Library, they have a copy of it. Uh, okay. Well, it's been exactly an hour, and I don't have any more to say, so I'm gonna let out here, and I'm not sure when I'll have another update, but there'll be one certainly before uh, summer, so probably sometime in May, probably. All right. Well, thanks everybody who showed up for listening, and I'll catch you all later. Hasta la vista. Vaya con Dios.